Alright, so let's talk about the top 10 most underrated cards in Terraforming Mars. Now, fair warning, this list is a little underwhelming. Uh, a lot of the underrated cards are like not that influential. They're like, I don't know, 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5 cards, like if you were rating them. There's a few that I do like a lot more, but yeah, but this is basically based just on my Steam games because that's where I have like a big sample size of what people do. I'm not gonna base it on like others people's like ratings, like Mark's experts ratings, because those are his ratings. I want to know what's like underrated by the sort of community. So yeah, it's just and so that means it's mostly the expansions that are there. So base, prelude, and Venus, which we have now had quite a bit of time to test, right? So yeah, underrated means what you think. It's just like I feel like people are using them less than they should. It doesn't mean they're good. So these are cards that sometimes I, either get like as the fourth or third option in a draft when I think like that shouldn't have happened, or cards that even send third or fourth to them and don't see them get played, which usually means they don't buy them. And they're like not priority. I mean, there's two very good cards here in my opinion. The rest are some like I said, 3 out of 4, or 3 out of 5, or 4 out of 5, or 2 out of 5. But yeah, and the other reason for that is that like I think people know what the good cards are at this point. Like there's a pretty big consensus on what like the top 2 tiers of cards are, and those just like people nap them and know what they are, right? So yeah, the underrated ones, unfortunately, not a lot of bangers. But let's begin, and let's begin with one that I think was the most underrated maybe a year ago, but at this point, like I think people have caught up, and that's Heat Trappers. This is a card that I myself underrated a lot. I wouldn't even think of taking this card, but it's devastating, and it's gone to the point where I always pick it now. If it's in my starting hand, it's a no-brainer. You might not get to use it, but it doesn't matter. If your opponent goes for heat, then you just undo his development. I recently, and this was like a player that was like a 2000 rated, so I just assumed he knew what he was doing. Like he did, I did Mohole area, and then he did this and robotic workforce, and so essentially undid my Mohole area and got 2 energy in the process, and only -1 victory point. And we paid. I paid a little more, but I got a tile, so you could say we paid about the same. But he got 2 free energy essentially, and undid my early development card. So it's not a card that I thought Robotic Warforce was that good, but like think about it, you don't even like copy the point. So yeah, that was brutal. I lost that game, by the way, obviously, because I was relying on Mohole area, and that reminded me that hit sucks, by the way. But yeah, these can be devastating if you're going for early hit development, even if it's just the 2, and then it's also giving you like a cheap energy, a very cheap energy, and a steel tag on Tharsis, a cheap steel tag on Tharsis, and the point, no one gives a fuck about the point early. So yeah, Heat Trappers. Like I said, people are catching on. Like I see it being used more and more, and that's why I have it at 10. But a year ago, I think most people passed on this. Maybe just who I played, which is usually, you know, I'm not in the highest tier, so I don't see a lot of 2000s. But that one time I saw him. So, but yeah, at number 9, Tropical Resort, and this is one of my favorite steel dumps. For one, like you don't need that much money, that much steel. So like even if you have 6 steel, this is a steel dump, right? And it's 2 points. 2 points are good. So last generation, this is a very good card. It's also unlikely that you have exactly 8 heat on the last generation. So even if your like heat is not maxed out, you can usually play it, decrease your heat by 2, and you get 3 extra cash, which makes the card 3 cheaper essentially, right? Because you're getting 3 cash production. And if it's before that, like you probably overdid your heat, which is never good. But if you're playing it before the last gen, then you get a little more cash out of it. Like I said, this is not a banger of a card or anything, but it is a decent steel dump. I've even used it to pivot in games that I had decided to rush and realized I wasn't going to be able to. And then you just pivot into engine. That's not an ideal use, by the way. It's not a good pivot into engine. You're paying a lot and you're probably barely getting your money back, but it's better than getting the heat at that point. You could say three heat and two heat and three cash are comparable in value, and you're getting 2 points. So yeah, it's another use, but yeah, like I said, a little underwhelming. Now for number 8, I'm gonna go with Corporate Stronghold. Now this is a city card that I often see people don't grab, and I think it's one of my favorite early ones. Like my favorite early one, aside from Research Outpost, is probably Cupola. It used to be immigration. What is it? Immigrant City, but if I don't know that I'm gonna place another city soon, I don't like Immigrant City that much. I mean, it's really cheap, but the -1 instead of the +3 that Cupola and Corporate Stronghold give me, like that makes it expensive really quickly. Like it's a 4 cash difference, so it catches Cupola catches up in 1 gen essentially, and yeah, eventually you're gonna get the production, but it can be so much later. So yeah, Corporate Stronghold is my second favorite early one. There's no restrictions on where to play it. Economically is the best one, except for Research Outpost, obviously. It does have the -2 points, which Cupola doesn't. That's why Cupola I like it a little bit more. Eventually, cities you want points out of them, but to be able to get the best city spot and also like get a card that might actually get you some economic development, because this is with the energy. It costs 21, assuming 7 for the energy, so it pays back in 7 generations. It's not something you play just for the eco development. You want the city, but you like to book the space or protect your greeneries early. This is great, and economically, it's the best one aside for Research Outpost. Um, and yeah, it might even give you some positive cash. They usually don't. Usually, cities never give you positive cash. But yeah, moving on to probably the best card here, which is I do think it's great, is Atmoscoop. And guys, trust me, play this. It's good. Like I keep getting this second and third round in the draft, and it's 3 points guaranteed. Control over tracks like both Venus and Heat that can help you accelerate, or if you want not accelerate the game, just keep it slowing it down, but also great for stealing the ocean and the terraforming rating on the Venus track. And then the two floaters can be another point. They can be two floaters on aerial mappers. They can help you get Hoverlord if you go for this early, which I usually don't, but you might. And it's a Jovian tag, which could be 1 or 2 more points. So and all of these for 22, it does have a science requirement, but I honestly like this card is just so good, and I keep seeing it second and third round of the draft just sent back to me. Uh, like the other day, I saw someone, well, not people, just one guy, pick Interstellar Colony Ship, which is 4 points. Atmoscoop is so much better than 4 points. Like I know it's at worst 3, but it's unlikely that it's just 3, and it's also terraforming rating, and like it's potentially 5. So and it's cheaper, like by 2. I know it's not a space event, but still, this card is great. Definitely one of the best Jovian point cards in the game. Please pick it. Okay, number 6, one that I've sort of shifted on. I did a video up there on these cards, but I'm singling out 2: Jetstream, Microscraper, and Extractor balloons. And these cards have basically sort of saved me from like not getting milestones a couple of times. Like they're like just so quick to Hoverlord, and they pretty much guarantee it. So it's very good. in that sense, I know economically they're bad. Like I have a video, like I mentioned, just discussing how they're not that good economically. They do give points. I think they're definitely much better with something like Viron or Celestic or even MSI, which benefits from moving early on Venus fast. So, but no one picks them. That's the thing. You can get this. You see this in the draft, and you want it. Just let it go back and forth, and pick it last. No one picks this, and so you can get this like fourth round, or even in your starting hand if you don't see a clear path to any milestones. I take them. I take them if I also have like a little focus on it. So they're very specific, but nobody plays these, and so that's why I think they're a little underrated. Now that brings me to a much better card that I think people rarely pick as well, and that's local shading. Now I also did a video on local shading where I compared it to two cards that people, if they're on their opening hand, always keep them, which are sponsors, acquire company, pretty straightforward cards. They're just like money production. They pay back in 5 6 gens. So like no one ever thinks like this. You just get this, you take it, and it's probably the first card you play, unless you know. You should play this before. You should always play. I know it's not intuitive, but you should always play corporate acquired company before Earth Catapult if you can only play one Gen 1. Think about it. But yeah, this should be one of the first cards out. And local shading, like in a 10 Gen game, performs better than sponsors, worse than acquired company, a little more than that, 11 gens, and it's already better. And yeah, it's really good, great production. It also gives you a delay action. It can help with Overlord. Like you need another card. You don't want to use local shading to get Overlord in Gen 7 and then maybe get 3 product. No, you're not going to do that. You can maybe put a second floater there and then do 2 removes the next 2 turns to help you get to Overlord. But yeah. But yeah, local shading really good, great economic producer. People really rarely play it. Now, getting into 4, like I knew this was the top 4. Like I was, like 5 to 10. It's hard to rate, like because you have the card rating, how much is used. It's pretty hard to say underrated for a lot of things. But 1 to 4, I was pretty sure when I did the list. And number 4 is Cloud Seeding. Everyone thinks this card is pure garbage. It's not great, but 2 plant production for 11 is decent. And yeah, you do need to take the hit from your opponent for this to be playable, but that's really easy. Like, often people just split on the hit bonuses on the hit track. Like, 1 hit is not that weird for someone to have it, and you either know they do or they don't, right? By the time you usually grab these 3 oceans pretty early, but you kind of know if they're gonna get the heat bonuses. 2 plant production for 11 is good, and this is another card that you can pick up like 4th spot in the draft, like no problem. So yeah, that's my number 4. My number 3, very similar but much better, gets a little more play. Nitrophilic Moss. Again, 3 ocean card. You need to have 2 plants, but usually you can just place 3rd ocean with a card, pick up 2 plants, play this card. So it's not really that tricky to play it. Also, if you're in Bentrix, it's nuts. It's really 1 ocean and it's 2 plant production, but it costs 8. It's so cheap. So this is another card. This one I think it's like people play a little more, but it's really good. And it comes down really early for something like Tharsis. I love this card because Tharsis really needs, I feel like, earlier plant because they have a good economy. So you can afford to invest a little earlier into plant prep to make sure that your cities pay off and that you can play maybe a little more cities than usual. Like maybe you can go to 4 or 5 cities with Tharsis even. It's pretty high, but you usually want to get to 3 early in Tharsis because of Mayor. And then if you can place 2 more, you want the early plant prep. Okay, but number 2, the other, I would say, really good card here, imported hydrogen. Now, this is another one that I underrated a lot, and I really like the counterpart imported nitrogen a lot more. And that's because nitrogen is just a better point card. But I just realized that imported hydrogen is not really at its best as a point card. I mean, it's still like late. It's 3 points. It's an ocean, and two animals, and that's 3 points for 19, which is usually discounted because it's a space event. It's it's not great, but it's decent. If it's discounted, it's good. But what you really want this for is just early pick up 5 plants with it, and save yourself, like save a greenery. And so whenever I'm going for plants, this is a must get. Like I take this first in the draft every time. I've left much better cards go because like not get saving your plants is really important. And then you can usually place the ocean, pick up 2 plants, 3 plus from the bonus, and then place a greenery next to that ocean and pick up 2 more cash. So it's just really good. It's my favorite plant saver early in the game, and yeah, it's of all these cards is the one that I see played more. I just find that it's weird for players who are like playing Ecoline. Not this should be a first grab. Even if you're not gonna use it that gen, you're gonna want to save your plants at some point. Okay, okay. Before number one, I wanted to do some honorable mentions. I have two technically, but really six. The first one is the oxygen bumpers, the energy bumpers. These are all like not. I would never make this my prime strategy unless I'm Thorgate. In which case I often do and kind of works. But this is a great way to take points from a plant player. Now you're helping them rush the game, so you kind of have to pair it with not developing the heat, unless you have the heat production, in which case it might be even. But a plant player that when mostly for plants and it's a little behind on heat production, like you can tell that the greeneries are gonna finish maybe 1 or 2 gen early send the heat. Then yeah, you definitely want to play this. Assuming you can get the cheap energy, right? So it's like they're a very specific use case, and there's four of them. And obviously, water splitting plant is probably the worst one, but they give like some resources back, and they're getting you terraforming rating. They're like I think people don't play them because they just see them as like a lot less points than plants, which they are. But you, like I said, if you're just taking points from the other player, they're good. And if you're Thorgate and you're Thorgate, then they're fine. And the other one, there are two colonist cards that I think are great, and like this is based. I have them as honorable mentions because based on my tabletop games, I would say they are underrated, but I haven't played enough of those, so I wouldn't know. But Skydogs and Speed of Department, I actually think people are catching up on Speed of Department. This card is absurdly just like what the fuck? How is this just 10? And Skydogs, yeah, I love this card. It's an extra trade fleet and -1. I've done videos on how good it is. I think it's my favorite extra trade fleet. It's also the cheapest one, which makes it a lot easier to get 6 energy. And from then on, once you have 2 trade fleets with colonies, it's really tough to beat. And the -1 also helps, right? So, yeah. All right, moving on to number one. And finally, number one, and this is something I only concluded recently, Business Network. Now, I see this card gets a lot less play than the Science counterpart, which is Inventor's Guild. And I think people are really scared of the -1 production. Now, Inventor's Guild also has a Science deck, but if you think about it, like if you play these cards in the same gen, say Gen 3, you're gonna lose 1 cash Gen 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And by Gen 8 is when this Business Network becomes more expensive than Inventors Guild. And this is not like card draw is something you want to play after eco development, especially the like I see players do get stuck. They play all the card draw early, and then they can not like develop the economy, and they never use all their cards. That used to happen to me a lot, actually. So you do want to go a little like you don't want to play Inventor's Guild Gen 1 unless you're one of the Reach Corps. And in that case, it's only like 3 better eventually. Like if you do Gen 1 instead of Gen 3, it's gonna be like 3 cash better. And You're only gonna fill it at the end of the game, so it's not gonna matter. So other than the science stack, this card is just better than Inventor's Guild. I just think people are really like scared of playing -1 production early. It feels counterintuitive, but if you're getting a discount, then it's good, right? So yeah, I like, and this one you do like, it's not like investment loan, which like I would say don't play early because it's just better to play late because you just get rid of the downside. But this one you want to play earlier because you want to draw as many cards as possible, right? So yeah, no, I think this card, like, unless I really need that science tag, I prefer it to Inventor's Guild now. And again, this is a card that people like. This it's the least favorite card draw for everyone. Even like Death Center. Death Center is really expensive. I know like the mechanics are different. Like you don't get to choose the card, and you have to get an energy, but you can get tapped. So this actually and this is only reason that I feel like this way. But yeah, I feel like might be better than Death Center. Obviously, like restricted area and AI Central are still the best too, right? But this is really good. It's just really good, and it's not that bad economically because it's so cheap, and it's also an Earth tag. So there's a chance for a discount and a chance that it helps you. Like that's the thing. Sometimes I play this and then play Cartel or Miranda Resort, and then it like offsets the -1. So yeah, I think that's the most underrated card. But anyway, yeah, let me know what you think. I hope you liked it, and see you next time.